Hello Internet! Today we're going to go through the basics of chain ply as you go on a drop spindle. Chain ply as you go is a very simple technique conceptually, but it may take some getting used to when you first try it out. So you will want to spin your singles normally. And when you've spun enough singles, maybe an arm's length or so, that's probably the minimum, you can make a quick little yarn butterfly with your singles, open up your last chain ply loop, pull the new singles through your last chain ply loop, thereby making a new loop, and spin your spindle in the opposite direction to ply your chain ply. And then you'll wind on as usual. So I'm assuming you know how to get started on a drop spindle, how to spin a singles yarn, you can do a half hitch, you know how to attach a leader, all that good stuff. But I won't assume that you know how to do a chain ply. And a chain ply is a long crochet chain stitch with your singles yarn that you then add some twist to ply it. If you don't know how to crochet or know what a crochet chain stitch is, that's fine. You start with a slip knot, so you make a loop, and then you pull another loop through that first loop, and here's your slip knot. And a slip knot slips a little bit, so you can make this starting loop big or small or whatever, but you just continue pulling new yarn through your loop. So when you chain ply, it is important that you keep this loop open because you need to always draw more yarn through it. When you chain ply, you also don't want your loops to be too close together because then they can kind of like collapse on each other, and this will give you a little bit of a knotty texture in your yarn. You also want to keep your loops approximately uniform, so like maybe this long, and then this long, and this long. That's completely up to you though. So that's the basics of chain plying. I've got my leader yarn. It's just a loop of cotton twine that I've tied, and we're gonna set it up as you normally would, you know, just attach it to the bottom, make your half hitch, and start spinning. Because, you know, we start off with a singles yarn. Get the leader attached, make our half hitch. This is a very long leader. You don't need this. But anyway, we start our singles as usual. Gonna wrap this over my hand so it doesn't interfere. I'm going to spin counterclockwise for my singles, but it really doesn't matter for you. You can spin whatever direction you want. Okay, so I've got about this much singles yarn, which is enough for a first loop. So I'm going to butterfly the yarn, which means I'll pinch at the point where the fiber starts becoming yarn, just right there. And I will take the yarn, I should stop the spindle from spinning. I'll hold the yarn with my right hand, and then with my left hand, I'll wrap around my pinky and my middle finger. And we're making a figure eight. You don't necessarily have to make a figure eight, just whatever works for you. And I'm just going to do this yarn butterfly until I find my leader yarn, which is right about here. I'm going to untwist that leader yarn so that I can open this loop back up. And so if you'll recall, a chain ply starts with a slip knot as our starting loop. We can also just use our leader yarn as our starting loop. So I'll take my starting loop from our leader yarn, grab the singles yarn we just spun, and make a new loop out of that. And I'll keep pulling the singles yarn through until the new loop that we just made is about as long as our remaining singles yarn. A little bit shorter is my preference. And then I'll make the tiniest new loop. So I'll pull the singles yarn through our new loop again, just enough for my thumb, basically, to be above our old loop. and then I will pinch right there where our chain ply becomes our singles yarn again. And this might be a little hard to see because the fiber's also right there. But I basically want to leave a little bit of singles yarn so that we can keep spinning our singles yarn after we've wound on our chain ply, but I don't want to leave too much of it because that'll make it a lot easier for the yarn to break. So anyway, we've got our chained up yarn. It's not chain ply yet because we haven't plied, but we'll do that real quick. We'll just spin our spindle in the opposite direction, which is clockwise for me, and I'll wait until my yarn is plied up and then I can wind on. So I'll do another yarn butterfly just to keep the yarn in control. I will undo my half hitch and then just wind on as usual. So now we've wound on a decent amount. We have a few inches of chain ply that's not wound on and then a little bit of singles yarn. I like to give this a tug so that we know that the chain ply isn't going to move, or the chain ply section isn't going to shrink as we make our half hitch. And this right now is not enough. It's not enough chain ply to make our half hitch because you can see the chain ply yarn ends right at the tip of the spindle. We want a little bit more of our chain ply yarn above the half hitch, maybe 2 inches or so. And this is important because this section of singles yarn right here is very weak. If you recall, we spun it counterclockwise and then we immediately spun this plied section clockwise. So right now there's been a little bit of untwisting done to the singles. So we do not want to suspend our drop spindle on that weakened section of singles yarn. It's much more strong if we put it on this chain ply part, even if our chain ply right now is untwisting and is going to continue to untwist as we spin more singles yarn. That's totally fine. When we spin up our next section of chain ply, this section will get plied. I will continue spinning my singles yarn in the counterclockwise direction. So I've spun more singles yarn. I have maybe just over an arm's length, like my right arm to my maybe left shoulder-ish, and you know, whatever's comfortable. Do whatever's comfortable. I will again butterfly the yarn. So pinky, middle finger, pinky, middle finger, pinky, middle finger, and my right hand is pinched over the section where the singles becomes the chain ply again. And so my right hand now will open up our previous chain ply loop and we'll grab the new singles and pull it through, making a new loop. I prefer making just one new loop at a time. So this is my new loop and I'll make one new tiny loop just so I've completed one new loop fully. And now we'll ply. Okay, and this is about how much plied yarn we end up with, you know, about a third of what you spin, which makes sense because we take a 1-ply yarn and we make it into a 3-ply. So we make a tiny little yarn butterfly, we undo our half hitch, and then we wind on. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope this demystifies chain ply as you go. It seems kind of intimidating to go straight from fiber to chain ply all on one spindle, but I think once you give it a try, you'll be pleasantly surprised by how intuitive it is. Happy spinning, and I'll see you in the next one.